Welcome to our webinar, everyone. Sierra Leone's fashion heritage and the rise of eco-conscious design. Today, we embark on a journey that celebrates the rich cultural heritage of this West African nation while embracing the principles of environmental responsibility and conscious consumption. Sierra Leone has a rich textile and fashion heritage with traditional hand-woven country cloth and vibrant batik designs that have been passed down through generations. The fashion industry in Sierra Leone employs many artisans and small businesses, especially women, who've kept up these traditions. However, the industry faces challenges such as a lack of infrastructure, training, and access to sustainable materials. Despite these obstacles, Sierra Leone's designers and entrepreneurs have taken a bold stance, embracing eco-conscious practices and promoting conscious consumption. They recognize the importance of preserving our planet's resources while celebrating the vibrant cultural heritage that inspires their creations. At the forefront of this excitement in the movement is Trippies Clothing, a promising Sierra Leone fashion brand established in 2016 by Denise King. After completing a fashion design and garment construction course in 2013, Denise founded Trippies Clothing, which specializes in creating timeless African fashion. Recently, the brand has transitioned into an eco-conscious label, producing hand-dyed batik clothing through sustainable practices, blending tradition with environmental responsibility. Today, we'll delve into the inspiring stories and innovative approaches of Trippies Clothing. We'll explore how they're challenging the fast fashion paradigm by creating unique designs that resist fleeting trends and promote conscious consumption. We'll also discuss today the positive impact these initiatives have on global representation, empowering communities and preserving the rich cultural heritage of Sierra Leone. As we navigate through this webinar, we'll gain valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities faced by sustainable fashion initiatives in Sierra Leone. We'll learn about the innovative techniques, ethical sourcing practices, and community-driven initiatives that are shaping the future of fashion in this region. So please join me in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Denise King, as she takes us on a captivating journey through the world of Trippies Clothing and the vibrant fashion landscape of Sierra Leone. Denise, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm Denise King, founder and creative director of Trippies Clothing, a garment fashion label where we deal with African fashion, precisely batik making and gara dyeing. We've been doing the African prints over the years, but we recently transitioned into sustainable fashion, wherein we deal with the batik, we do the hand dye, and then we use sustainable fabrics like cottons, 100% cottons, and then we do silk and we do linen as well. You know, in 2013, I started Trippies and formally launched. We established and started business in 2016. After going through a garment manufacturing course, you know, I started my business. We've been doing African fashion, and up until 2 years, we started doing the sustainable fashion because we try as best as possible now to promote our indigenous fabrics and designs. You know, that was how Trippies was born. You know, basically, I was inspired and still inspired by African culture. You know, generally, because most times when people hear about Africa, they hear about the wars and not so positive views. You know, so we're trying to get to portray Africa in a more pleasant views, and using print is one way I see that I can do that. You know, I can achieve that because there's beauty in prints. There's beauty in the African prints. There's a much more to be looked at. You know, so I started the batik training, and since then we've been on it. You know, we train people. We go through we go through training periods we worked with interns, students that have gone through fashion courses. They work with us, we train them, and we equally train people as well. And then the tailors that work with us, you know, we've been working with these people since 2016. You know, some of the some of the things we've achieved during the years, we've been part of a lot of workshop and seminars, both local and internationally, some of which are some of the international workshops that we've engaged in is one that we attended in the Maldives was organized by UNESCO and Commonwealth, which was for women leveraging digital infrastructures and digital marketing for women-owned businesses, which TPs was part of. And then there's a workshop again in Shenzhen, where we were fortunate to be part of for designing and workshops. So since then, we've been working with partnering with local artisans and tailors, producing garments, producing bags, producing slippers, backpacks, and so on. In 2018, we were also part of an 8 women-led consortium that we produced 15,000 pieces of mask, for the public, and then we were even part of some charity works that we donated quite some few, I think 250 pieces of mask to Medical and Dental Association. We've been engaged in charity works. We've been training people informally. We go for workshops, we go for trainings, informal and both formal ones. And recently we started working with an organization wherein it's a school. It's a school wherein we work with their interns for every 3 months, and then we give them certificates, so that some of them go to start up their own, and then we retain some as well in our own factory. We have a small place in town where we produce our garments, and then we take it to our physical store, and then we put them up for display for sales. Also, we sourced dyes and inks from local traders in the market, and some which we contact some vendors outside Sierra Leone to get, because we don't produce everything we need. Sometimes we make do of what we have, and then we buy some outside Sierra Leone locally, local neighboring countries, the dyes, the ink, and so on. Recently, we launched Freetown Fashion Design Textile Association. We were just like a group of ladies owned businesses. We came together and we launched the association. This was launching, and also this is my workspace where we do our work with the ladies, mostly women, and then few of the men, which are the tailors. And also this was when we donated the masks, and this was before we transitioned into our sustainable clothing. We were using the African prints, using it to do the pattern work, the motifs, which we use to beautify the garments. And this is currently now wherein we do the tie and dye. After doing the tie and dye, we display at the shop. This picture is also one of the students doing the batik designing, and this is our team where we have a finance, marketing, and sales manager and myself. It's been a journey, really. This was the workshop which we participated in the Maldives, and we displayed and we did an exhibition, and everybody were happy. We made some exhibitions, and our staff was really happy. Our staffs were really outstanding. People bought them and they really loved it. I'll share some of the videos. This was one of the local workshops in town where we go to train people and just give inspiring stories wherein we inspire the younger ones to just, have the passion and keep pushing. This was in Shenzhen, in China. It was a workshop organized by the Ministry of Tourism here in Sierra Leone. So they picked TPs and we were fortunate enough to attend, and this is part of our workshop in town. These are the tailors in Portuguese. This was one of the local night markets where we participated, and the ambassador to Freetown, British ambassador to Freetown, Madam Lisa Chesney, was in attendance. You know, we took a picture. This also was some of my products where we do the backpacks and we try to do proper packaging, and because those are some of the challenges here, you know. So we try as much to do our packaging right. Yeah, basically these are some of our products. This is the dyeing process of our fabrics, where we do the batik designs, the dye bath, the inks, the process, basically, you know, how the batik process go through all the process, the inks, the pattern being laid on the table. You know, we achieve the patterns first and then soak it in the dye bath before it gives us the color. And after we dry the fabric, we air dry and then we ironed, and it's ready for the next phase, which is the garment construction phase. You know, and after the garment construction phase, this is where we display at the shop. I'll share some videos of more videos of the garment construction. These are fabrics, and then this is a pattern of the prints where which we cut out to do patterns on the fabric as well. And this is one of them as well. And then this is also a student doing the garments, the pattern making, pattern cutting before putting it on the main fabric to cut. This is my daughter, was just playing with the machine, you know. And these are some of our certificates during the years. You know, this is the launch of our the association last June this year. And then this is me in my shop. You know, that's basically a summary of TP's clothing.
Thank you so much, Denise. And that was really, really wonderful. So Denise, can we talk a little bit about you yourself? Can you tell us about your own background and what led you into the fashion industry?
Okay, I'm basically an entrepreneur. I studied business administration and management in our university here in Freetown. In 2012, I started the fashion, to be precise, and then I went through a fashion school. The fashion school was in Abuja then in Nigeria. I went through a fashion school in Nigeria, and after which I came back to Freetown and I established my business. We started doing the garment construction. I had some tailors, you know, and we started doing the work in town. We started from 2016 up until 20, another location close to the seaport where they board the boats to go to the airport. So, and then we had to leave after the COVID because of some financial challenges and all that. We left my location and then we moved to a new location, a smaller location. You know, basically it's the love, the passion, and I'm inspired by everyday culture, the beauty around me, you know, generally, because to me, I see the African garments like there's much more to it, you know. And most times what people hear about Africa, they hear maybe like wars, they hear not so good news, you know. So I tried as best as possible. I used the African garments to just to portray the beauty of Africa, you know, and the prints, the textile, the prints, the beauty of the prints. I just, you know, a lot of creativities. So I just say, okay, let me use the prints to just portray some beauties of, you know, African culture.
What do you think have been the biggest challenges for you along the way with your mission?
Yeah, the biggest challenges for me along the way has been to funding one, getting the right materials to work with, you know, and then the market, because it's when we do the fabrics, when we want to process, sometimes it tends to be more labor intensive, whereas if we had like a lot of machines, it would be easier for us to make production easy. Sometimes they have to go through like the manual machines, you know, instead of using the the industrial ones that will make the work to be efficient and easy, and even some of the products used in the process. We have to wait. Sometimes we wait for long for the shipments to come. Time, we have to wait, and then if there are issues, sometimes disappointment comes and all that. So a lot of them, the challenges, and all that. But we're trying now.
So what would you say was the most important thing which inspired you to start Trippies and also to focus on sustainable fashion practices?
I was inspired and still inspired every day by the beauty in the African culture generally. Most times when people outside Sierra Leone or outside Africa hear or sees Africa, they hear most times things, negative things, about wars and so forth, so, but there is much more to that, so which I decided to use the African fabric as an heritage, and the prints and the textiles, the beauty of the print, the appearance, it speaks love, endless love. So um, um there's dignity in love and in African fashion. So I'm helping to portray that in my designs, in my production as much as possible. I try to make them appreciate the culture, and trying also to create employment,
So, tell me a bit more about the whole fashion scene in Sierra Leone. Obviously, there's huge fashion brands that are just based on fast fashion in the world. Huge amounts of. I won't mention these famous clothing brands, which presumably are also present in Sierra Leone as well as in other places. I mean, how do you think you can convince people that they shouldn't be buying cheap, quite attractive, relatively cheap designer clothes off the peg, which they can feel like millionaires in, basically, because they're relatively affordable? How can you convince them that that's actually not the way to go?
The current fashion industry in Sierra Leone is still developing. I can say, the fashion itself is widespread, but the industry as a whole has a lot of work to do. We have made some significant gains, but we still need to do more. They shouldn't. That's one of the concepts, that made me to even go into the African fashion, really, because sometimes when people see African fashion, they look at it as inferior, compared to the fast fashion. They look at it as if it's cheap, it shouldn't be expensive. So we're trying to change the narratives to make them appreciate that there are a lot of things that can be done with the African fashion, And also we're trying to overcome the challenges, raising awareness, encouraging them to see the bigger picture, and trying to get them employing them to make them, try to get them busy, because you have a lot of unemployment as well, so all those things we're trying to just take them off, the idleness and all that, to just get something doing, something creative, something that they would like, and something they can fend for their family and be self-sufficient as well.
Yes, I mean, it's also extremely creative thing to do, isn't it? I mean, there's an enormous amount of satisfaction actually in being involved in clothing, especially when it's not fast fashion, because you can regard every piece as a work of art, really.
Yes.
Can you tell me, how do you go about your marketing? How do you do that? Do you have fashion shows? Do you advertise in other ways? How do you really get your message out?
Most times we engage in all these local exhibitions, and sometimes we're lucky enough to be participating in international exhibitions. A lot of them we engage, and then also social media, where we sell through WhatsApp, we sell through Facebook and Instagram, and also in our physical retail store in town. So basically we've been using those medium as sales points.
So do you ship abroad if anybody wants to buy
Yes,
from
we
you
do.
and have it shipped abroad? Have you got orders from abroad?
Yes, we do quite some few. They take the, like, even just before I come into the webinar now, we had some others from America. Some people come And if they have someone going, they tell us to just do some package for them, or sometimes we send through our postal offices, and we do some few through DHL as well.
Right. So can people order from you on your website or from
Yes,
social
sure.
media?
Yeah. Yes, we do through our website, we do through social media, and we post our testimonies as well from time to time from them.
Do you find receiving payment from overseas an issue? How do you manage that?
We do through payments method on MoneyGram. We do through Western Union. There's one they call it there, through other local things as well, but basically through banks.
Okay, that's very entrepreneurial of you. So how do you feel that you're doing, compared with the fashion industry as a whole? Can you just give us a sense of the bigger landscape and where you fall within that in Sierra Leone?
Okay. We in the local community here in Freetown, we try to capture the market, because we're unique in our own way. They know we have a reputation of being different. People know our pieces. Like when someone wears 3-piece, they know it's 3-piece because there's just something different about it. The finishing, the placement of the fabrics, the alignment of the designs, and the inside is as well as important as the outside. So we try to as best as possible to make the garments very appealing. So most of our customers are always satisfied, very, very satisfied.
So how do you deal with sizing? Because that's always an issue, isn't it? And it's sort of different in different places in the world. How do you cope with that?
Because one of the benefits of me attending the fashion school was one of the benefits, because I'm into made to wear. We make clothes and hang on the rack and then people buy. So I tried as much as possible to use UK sizing for now. That's what we use. We use a UK sizing as a standard measurement. So when somebody tells us they use size 12, we have a size 12 clothes for a person of size 12. When a UK size 12, I make them know that we have UK 12, we have UK 14. So most times if they give me like the US 14, I automatically know that's a UK 16,
Yeah.
So I know how to, I try as best as possible to use my standard measurements.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. But I understand that as people in the West get more obese, apparently these sizes are changing somewhat. Have you come across that?
Yes, and with cars, because when I work with my patterns, I tend to have a slight change in the standard measurements and our body types, because for us African, we have we're a bit full, and on the back side a bit bulky, so I try to do my own personal adjustments according to our own body size and all that.
Wow, so it's a kind of it's sort of semi-tailored, really, what you're doing. That's fantastic.
Yeah. That is why we do the teachings to the students.
Can you explain the batik dyeing processes and how that aligns with sustainable practices? It's obviously has an ancient history, batik.
Yes. So what we do is that we source our fabrics, we source our chemicals, we source our inks and everything from sometimes locally, the inks and dyes, and then the fabrics, because we don't manufacture, we get them from neighboring countries around. We source sustainable hand-woven fabrics. Sometimes we do silk, sometimes we do linen, as the case may applies. So we bring all those things together, we put them, and then the dyeing process, firstly, we prepare the fabrics, we soak them, we pre-wash them to see how they react. Sometimes they shrink. So we know like, okay, this one shrinks and all that. So after preparing them, we prepare the ink on the fire and everything, the dyes. We mix the dyes, we spread the clothes, we check the designs that we want to do, we put them into batches, allocate them to different people and show them what they're going to do and all that. And then we start the designs. After which we put the designs into the dye bath. The dye bath will be like combination of 1 or 2 or 3, depending on the colors of inks we use, you know. So we do them on the dye bath, we soak them, we de-wax them, we started rinsing them, we hang them to dry, and then we iron. That's the face of the batik. And then it gets ready for the garment construction stage, where we start constructing the garments, and then after constructing the garments, we give them to the different interns to do, like if we're doing beadworks, if we're doing rhinestones on them, they prepare them. So, and I will do the quality control check on them, and then pack them, iron them, and display in the shop.
Wow. And how long has batik been going on in Sierra Leone? Do we have any idea of the actual origins of roundabout when it started?
Yes, it's been a long time, long time, you know. It's been a long time. Since time immemorial, batik has always been an cultural heritage clothes, you know, and we have the kente, there's a thicker one again, the sustainable fabric, there's a thicker one, the country cloth, you know, they have that as well. It's been long, it's been in existence since time immemorial. It's been really long.
How durable is the fabric? I mean, obviously you test it and you've explained all of that, but does it withstand washing, or does it need dry cleaning? You know, what's your experience with that?
No, we don't do dry cleaning. We do washing, hand washing. It takes hand washing. We try to do more of cotton, because cotton is easy to maintain, you know. It's easy to maintain, and we use good dyes. So the dyes, basically, they don't wash to, you know, wash in another garment or something. We try as best as possible to source very good dyes.
Right, right. So how do you, when you source your materials, which you've explained come from maybe neighboring countries as well as Sierra Leone, how do you actually check that there's ethical and sustainable sources?
Once
Do
in a
you
while
actually
we
go
visit
there, or
all
do you
those
know these
places.
people, or how do you check on
Yes.
that?
Visit them sometimes in their locations unexpectedly. We visit them, and then to see how they do, where they how they practice the fair trade, if they're not younger people involved, if they are not, you know, overworking the people or underpaying them as well. So we try as best people. And then sometimes I go through social media, I look for vendors and suppliers that, you know, have good reviews from people and all that, see how they've been doing businesses. Then I called them. We started, you know, sending.
I mean, that's really a fantastic mixture of sort of sustainable ancient practices and using technology to make sure they're in place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think are the main environmental and social issues that Sierra Leone's fashion industry needs to change, and that you're trying to address with your practices in how you're designing and making these clothes?
I think the future is global. If you ask, the future is global. We're trying to spread the African message in a positive way, and Sierra Leone has evolved during the years. You know, after a bitter, unfortunate war experience and all that, we're trying to come out from that, and then as well as trying to make people, trying to employ people as best as possible, you know, so that they always say an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So it makes them to come off the thinking, the depression and all that, just to get their minds busy, you know. We try as best as possible to engage them, teach them, and all that.
So you've explained how you actually can use local communities and local people to do a lot of your jobs. Can you explain your whole setup with that? Do you have a factory, or is it piecework within communities? How do you organize that? And how do you train people? I mean, must be quite a challenge.
We have a small workshop at the moment where we rented a space. You know, they come in, it's a bit choked up because we're always much, you know, but we're trying to make do of the available space. You know,
That's a sign of
I
success.
partition them. Yes, I normally partition them, like we have them tailors in one side, we have the cutting room in one side, and we have the girls that they do the like finishing and everything in one side, and then the compound we use for the batik making, for now.
I mean, at the moment, I think sustainability and environmental responsibility is definitely on everybody's consciousness.
Yes.
How do you think we can continue in the future to balance that with the obviously human desire that's also gone on throughout history for fashion and style, which kind of revolves around change and street fashion and so on? How do you reconcile those two things?
I think we should just try as best as possible to encourage the younger ones, to make them see more reasons in coming and appreciating the African fashion, because a lot of them just think that, okay, African fashion is inferior. There's this big brands that they prefer, just to let them see the beauty of African fashion. There's so much to learn from it. There's so much more. There's so much to learn from the African fashion, so we're trying as best as possible to just make them appreciate, so we're
Yes.
trying.
How has the fast fashion industry impacted local communities and the environment in Sierra Leone? Do you have any examples of what you think fast fashion has done?
Yes, fast fashion is it's everywhere. It's a big issue here, because fast fashion is really cheap, and that's the one they can access easily. And you have all this mass production that comes in the country on a regular basis, flooding the markets. And those are what people can those are what people can afford, so they tend to go more, but they don't, forgetting the damages, forgetting the disadvantages of those things. Because for example, they do like the rubber shoes, like the plastics things and all that. It causes pollution, it causes really damage, and it floods the whole thing, to some extent, that our the dump sites are really full, unable to pass on the drainages and all those. It's been a really challenge, forgetting that if we continue or develop our own, it will be much better in the sustainable fashion, because fast fashion is really in time it damages, but they don't have like the knowledge, so we're trying to let them understand. It takes time, but we're letting them understand that it's really is not the best option.
Yeah, I mean, that's a worldwide problem, I think, isn't it? It isn't just Sierra Leone's problem. Yeah. So tell me, Denise, what's the attitude of government? Do you get any government support for what you're doing, or for the design and textile and clothing production industries generally in Sierra Leone?
Other than the exhibitions, the local exhibitions, the platforms, we've not really had that. For me, I've not really had that funding, but they always give us the platform to showcase our products, and then, but we've been trying. I've been trying personally to just get avenues to showcase and show them what we can do and all that.
Does Sierra Leone have a sort of government-sponsored design institute, textile industry, anything for the clothing industry?
That is what we just launched recently, because we've not had anything formal. We've just been, everybody's doing their thing all over the place. So we just made up our mind that we need to come together to have an association. So if we're going for anything or whatever, we can just be in a form of a body, So recently, just in June, this past June, we launched the association. It's about 25 of us, and then I'm one of the member of the executive members, It's been a challenge.
So you've talked a lot about selling through the internet and your website and so on. How do small textile and clothing companies in Sierra Leone typically sell or distribute the products? Are they doing it the same way as you, or are there other methods?
No, a lot of them do like me. A lot of them do on social media, retail locations and all that. So a lot of them do the same way, And DHL as well, there was a time they did a workshop introducing us with some DHL partners wherein we can do business and easy access to markets abroad, So we're making use of those things as well.
How do you think people in Sierra Leone think about locally made textiles versus imported ones? I mean, you've explained how there's this great attraction of fast fashion because it's cheap, and that's true, all over the world. Do you think they have any particular regard for their locally made textiles, perhaps, though, as part of the heritage?
We're trying as best as possible to spread the message in a very positive way, because Sierra Leone has really involved. It has really involved even in every aspect of business, commerce, and general developments, in the fashion industry. So we're trying to let them know before you don't get a lot of people wear the African prints here, but now we're encouraging them in the way, because now you see we match the two, the culture and the traditional culture and the modern African. That is one thing I do as much as possible, to just do the design, because some people will find it boring. They tell you, oh, I can't wear this, I can't wear that. But in my designs, I make sure I bring the contemporary African, I see, people can see my designs and just see, I can do a jacket, so a jacket they can wear to the office, you can wear for a meeting. So I try my best to just bring the modern elegance into the traditional textile, So with that, they tend to love the fabric. They tend to go for it. And with the artistic work and the beauty of everything, you just love the designs.
So there's an element of kind of fusion.
Yeah, right. Yes, we try as best as possible to do.
So what advice would you give to aspiring fashion designers or entrepreneurs who want to start a sustainable fashion brand, other than probably join you, which would be a good outcome? But generally, what advice would you give them?
I will tell them to go for their passion, to be hardworking, to keep on pushing, So with hard work and dedication, they will get there. It's a bit challenging, but with dedication and hard work,
So how can consumers support your fashion initiatives like Trippies? Both consumers in Sierra Leone and abroad, people like me and perhaps anybody who's watching this, how can they support Trippies?
Through marketing. A lot of consumers should support us through marketing, and they should consuming our fabrics and giving us a playing field to showcase our work, and supporting local indigenous brands, with that, they can tend to encourage us to bring us, into the same playing field as the other developed brands and all that, just to give us a platform, and let us have the right equipment and machinery to make a very standard garments at the end of the day, so that it will match up with world-class clothing and all.
So I was looking at some jobs that were going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, and it seems like the kind of hand-working jobs which you are creating through the sort of creative processes that you're using, they're not going to be replaced by AI. But apparently, it really surprised me, fashion models may be replaced by AI to some extent, because you can put photographs of your clothing onto AI-generated models. Have you considered using this? Are you using that kind of marketing at the moment, using AI to market?
So far we haven't used any. I haven't used any. I haven't had the opportunity. I wouldn't mind to try and see how it goes. And it will be great, because the world is going to digital. So maybe it will be of great help.
Yes, it might be a great way of showcasing sort of wonderful handmade, sustainable garments on AI. Yeah. So what are the barriers, do you think, main barriers to implementing sustainable fashion practices in Sierra Leone? I mean, for example, access to resources. The government doesn't seem over supportive. Infrastructure, Should there be higher tariffs on imported fast fashion? How do you see the whole environment to support the local industry and in particular sustainable fashion in Sierra Leone?
The main challenges which we face in Sierra Leone, and we're trying to overcome, me particularly as a brand, most people are brainwashed to think that their indigenous fashion is inferior. So instead of embracing them, and then not forgetting or forgetting that it's even so unique in its own way, and we should just try to pass the knowledge between from us to the younger generation, and then also they should see the beauty. They should see the beauty in culture at the same time,
Is this a subject which is taught in schools about the history of batik and maybe craft lessons and so on? Is that helpful?
Yes, they do. Even at primary stage level, they try to teach the kids about hand dyeing. They do textile and designs. They try as best as possible to involve such practices in their curriculum.
That's very positive, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes governments as well, they have people that do so well, but their challenges is funding. Sometimes you see people do so well, they don't have the level, the platform to bring more from, of themselves, so.
Absolutely. So, the Commonwealth is 56 countries, a number of them in Africa, but some quite large Western countries, and it's got a population of 2.6 billion. Have you noticed at all that there's any fashion initiatives within the Commonwealth? For example, maybe London fashion shows, or could the Commonwealth be doing more to try to promote this kind of wonderful industry within Commonwealth countries?
Yes, that's one of them. Maybe they can bring more awareness, and give us more opportunities so that we can be involved in a lot of their activities, so we can meet with the right people,
So at the moment, do you have any cooperation with international organizations? I mean, obviously we're doing this webinar, but that would be a way forward for your international marketing, wouldn't it, to promote sustainable fashion in Sierra Leone? Is that happening at the moment?
I'm supposed to be involved in one. I was called a few days back to be involved in one exhibition that is coming up in Rwanda. So I might be able to have a platform to showcase, and get in touch with, just be in touch with the right people, So things like that, sometimes we're lucky enough to just come across people that really sees the passion, the zest, the things like that. They just see they know like this person can do it, So people, sometimes we're lucky enough to come across people that just sees
changing the world one person at a time. We also see a lot of Rwanda in Commonwealth initiatives. Yeah, they're very, very active. So is there anything you would like to ask your government to do more to support your sustainable fashion?
Yes, please. I would love them to put more focus on us, to give us more support, to just, try to get more collaborations, try to bring people involved, try to bring professionals that will teach us, like trainers of trainees programs, that we can be able to teach others, programs like that. And then maybe with short-term loans, partnerships, things like that, so people can just scale up to the next level,
Obviously, the internet's very good. We're talking today on this webinar, but generally, is a good infrastructure for internet in Sierra Leone?
Yes, the internet facility is one thing, because here in Freetown, the internet facility is a bit not so good, and a lot of people are just on WhatsApp and on Facebook. You don't have a lot of awareness in searching on the other social media platform like LinkedIn and the other ones. They just come on with the TikTok and the other things. So because of the internet facilities and just because of entertainment. So maybe with internet facilities, there'll be much more awareness to look at other avenues, to look at other search platforms, other social media platforms where they can get opportunities, where they can get news about what is really going on, because you have a lot of the people that are interested in helping us are not on like all these other friendly to, informal platforms. They are more of in LinkedIn and others on other places,
Yeah.
So they should try to bring the internet.
I guess TikTok is a major marketing platform, though, isn't it? I mean,
But
do you do TikTok videos?
I do for my business, but here in Freetown, people tend to do it for more friendly, like joke, all the kind of, informal things mainly here. Just few people use it for business.
Like that might be an opportunity, because you could create some, cool, funny videos with your clothes, and no one else is doing it. You never know.
Actually. Yes, I do. We try. We do all the time. We have some couple of videos on TikTok.
Cool. So Denise, where do you see yourself and your business in 5 years' time?
In 5 years' time, I plan to launch a training institution for garment manufacturing and batik training, also to expand our products, to have a wider audience, to have been known beyond the shores of Sierra Leone, and to enhance sustainable practices as well. And also to build a strategic partnership with other businesses that were like-minded people like myself, also to increase community engagement and impact, to do more community engagement with local artisans, to engage them, and to just promote Sierra Leonean cultural heritage through fashion, and also to establish a global recognizable sustainable brand.
Wow, you're truly a creative artist with a lot of passion,
Denise.
To
empower the community.
Wonderful missions. Well, I do hope we can hear from you again, maybe in a few months' time, about how it's all going. It's been really wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much. It's very inspiring to hear this amazing work you're doing with Trippy's Clothing. And your commitment to sustainable fashion, job creation, and celebration of African heritage is truly wonderful. And I think that your own journey is really an example of the power of entrepreneurship and innovation to drive positive change in communities. So that brings us more or less to the end of this webinar. And it's really obvious that Sierra Leone and other Commonwealth countries are playing this huge role in fostering growth, and they're looking for collaboration overseas. And these countries are leveraging their unique strengths and resources to address all sorts of global challenges. And in Denise's particular case, this unsustainability and damage to the environment of fast fashion, which can be mitigated by wonderful companies like Trippy's, which are actually spending a lot of time and energy creating sustainable fashion. It's very inspiring, and it just highlights so much opportunity and potential. And so, Denise, thank you so much. I think it's so important that as we move forward, we nurture and strengthen the collaborative efforts and try to unlock new avenues for growth and innovation and have a positive impact. And you're a great example of that. So thanks so much again, Denise, for the wonderful talk. And, do hope, as I mentioned, to hear more about your achievements in the coming years. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today. So thank you, Denise. Thank you, everybody, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day, and bye.